Okay, so I'd like to read a little passage from this wonderful little book I have here. This is a conversation between a teacher and somebody who doesn't want his son to talk about his religion. So this person comes up and says, "This is a conversation, obviously. I told you on the phone you've crossed the line by asking questions about my son's faith." So he replied, "Okay, wait, please. First, what class is your son taking?" "Critical thinking." "Okay, thanks. And why do you think faith should be off the table?" "Because it's an abuse of your authority. You have no right to ask students. They're young, they'll believe what you tell them." He went on for a few minutes, basically repeating himself, and I listened. "Okay, so what should I talk about in a critical thinking class?" "Anything except that." "Algebra?" "That's ridiculous. You know yourself you shouldn't talk about algebra." "True, but I'm trying to establish a baseline. Things I should and shouldn't talk about, right? So I shouldn't talk about algebra. But what other faith? What about Islam? Should I talk about Islam?" "No, there may be Islamic in the new class." "No, definitely not." "Should I talk about how people come to knowledge?" "Yes, yes, as long as you don't talk about faith." "So just to be clear, I should talk about how people come to knowledge as long as it doesn't relate to faith. Is that your view? I don't want to put words in your mouth." "Yeah, that's correct." "And what about Noah's Ark? Can I talk about that?" "What? What about it?" "Am I allowed to talk about how people know about the big boat and all the species and such?" "No, no, no." "What about the koala bears?" "What about the koala bears?" "Can I talk about how the koala bear went from the Ark to Australia?" "What are you talking about? What koala bear?" "You know, those cute, fuzzy little bears. They're called koala bears. They live in Australia. Have you ever been to the zoo?" "I know what a koala bear is, but why are we talking about koala bears?" "Because I want to know how the koala bear got to Australia. And I want to know if you think I can talk about this." "But what does the koala bear have to do with anything?" "Well, once the koala bear got off the Ark, how did it go to Australia?" "It migrated. Migrated, you know." "But if it only eats eucalyptus leaves and there's no eucalyptus tree where the Ark allegedly landed, so how did the koala bear get to Australia?" "It used to eat other things." "So it evolved?" Pause. Long pause. And this is just an extract of a book that's called A Manual for Creating Atheists, and we're lucky enough to have the author with us here today. One. Hello, Peter. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Hey, Kevin.
Peter Boghossian, ladies and gentlemen. We have him with us. See that, Peter? They love you. They love you.
I got to walk around with someone doing that behind me. That'd be pretty good.
Yeah. Peter, for those of our listeners that don't know you, shame on their house for not knowing you. Can you give us like a quick brief? Who is Peter Boghossian, and where are you going with all this stuff?
Who is Peter Boghossian in terms of professional context? I wrote a book called A Manual for Creating Atheists. I speak about faith and reason and evidence and the role of evidence in belief formation around the country and Canada. I'm going to INR 5 next year.
Nice.
I think it's in Vancouver.
It is.
I teach philosophy, critical thinking, atheism, etc., ethics at Portland State University. And that's about it. That's kind of a brief overview.
Okay. So the book there, A Manual for Creating Atheists. Now, you got to admit, a lot of people will find this a provocative title. Was there trouble from the public because of the title of your book? Which is a fantastic book, by the way. I read it like 3 times already.
Oh, well, thanks. I appreciate that. I really do. That wasn't my initial – I wasn't going to name it that initially, but my editor and my publisher told me that I was going to put the word epistemology in it, but they said no one in their right mind would buy a book with the word epistemology. I like the title. Dennett likes the title, too, he told me. I like the title. It's I think it is what it is. I think it says exactly what it's going to do, even though, many people say, oh, a manual, I don't want to read a manual. It doesn't really capture the essence of what the book is in a sense. But yeah, there was a lot of blowback from it for sure.
Was your book written as a bit of a countermeasure to religion infiltrating U.S. politics, especially?
Yes, it was written. Definitely, that was a part of it. And I hear things are not as bad, but somewhat similar in Canada. Is that correct, by the way?
It's not as bad, but it's starting to.
This current government is doing their best to make it that way.
It's starting to infiltrate across the border.
And that's Karen, right?
Yes.
We haven't introduced Karen yet.
Oh, Karen's always with me, of course. She's always doing the podcast. She's an integral part. She's the one that keeps me at bay from doing stupid things.
Oh, only sometimes.
Yeah, the way she can, anyway.
No, this government does sneaks a lot of things in without any consultation under the radar, and they've done quite a lot to make it a much more religious government, the federal government, that is.
Mm-hmm. They even starting saying now, like they say in the U.S. so many times, God bless Canada. They're even trying that now. So
Interesting.
yeah, indeed. I love the way the book was written. Okay, like it's like a little notebook, from school actually with detailed notes. And was it done in that way to get the prospective student, if I could say that, to want to do his or own research?
Well, it was done. So what I did was, excuse me, the bulk of the book, except the footnotes, were written at junior level in college, and then the footnotes were written at a master's or PhD level, so people could take it to any level they wanted to take it. And then I have the dig deeper section, so in case anybody wants to, and I'm copying that same format for my app. They have a dig deeper section in case anybody wants more information or wants to go in more depth in the material. And so I've been thinking about those things for 25 years, and I taught similar things about how to talk people into reason in the prisons, and I wrote and I published about that. And prison inmates have a really rather different set of expectations and experiences. So I wrote it so that anybody could just begin using it to talk people out of faith and superstition. And there's some wonderful little videos of people. Anthony Monabusco has a YouTube channel. You can post the link on it after this podcast for your listeners, in which he does these 5-minute interventions. And he again, without setting out too much of the book, the basic idea is nobody is just going to snap, be talked out of their faith instantly. It's a slow process. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that you want to get them to question basic assumptions and to help them to doubt the beliefs that they hold or become less certain and less dogmatic about those, and then decrease their confidence value that they hold in beliefs. So he'll start the intervention by saying, okay, how confident are you in this, in the belief in God? And people will say, a lot of say 100, 70. The guy today when I watched the video, he said 70. And so he tries to bring them down on this thing. It's called the trans-theoretical model without being overly complicated. Mm-hmm. But it's basically helping people decrease the confidence value they hold in their beliefs. And you can do this for anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be faith-based beliefs, but it's just the problem of faith is a particularly egregious problem that needs to be addressed. So they're fun little 5-minute videos.
Yeah, you just said it yourself there, and it's one of the things I really appreciate about your book. It's not just for atheists. It's almost like a great sales book in a way. It's a book that'll help you just about debate anything, whether it's politics or anything in life. You can almost call it a manual for life.
Yeah, I would definitely not use the word debate, though. I'd use the word can help you talk to people about things and can help you engage ideas. I don't view these engagements as debates. I think debates are actually counterproductive. I think what is productive is having a more sincere and honest conversation with someone where you try to really figure out how somebody knows what they know. And if somebody knows something that you don't know, that is, if the process they use to know something can be relied upon to lead one to the truth, then you should use that process yourself. So it really is a way that everybody can become less dogmatic and more open to ideas.
Mm-hmm. Now, sorry, go ahead.
You mentioned an app.
Yes, I was about to say that. You mentioned an app. I even hear there's a game coming up.
Yeah, I have a game that just got kickstarted. The game doesn't have anything to do with faith or religion, but it does have to do with. So here's the thing. So I've been thinking a lot lately about. I think targeting. A very good friend of mine said you need to rethink from scratch everything you're doing. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, you need to take a step back from it because I don't think. While I think you're achieving what you need to be achieving, I don't know that you've laid the groundwork. And I really thought about that for a long time. And the groundwork is basically helping to nurture dispositions in people so that they value those things that are necessary for critical rationality. So I worked with that's quite a sentence right there, but I worked with a a game company, and I came up with this idea that so in certain things in academic context, outside of academia, in a certain sense, it's really hard to help people have to develop certain attitudes that predispose them to being rational and changing their beliefs. It's called belief revision and being trustful of reason. And so we came up with a way to do that in the format of a game. So it's basically a storytelling game that fosters these dispositions necessary for critical reasoning. So you construct stories, and we have a local artist. Everything is local here in Portland, Oregon, the Northwest.
Nice.
We have a local artist who did the cards, Noah Patrick Farr. He's an excellent artist. We have a local company, Elbowfish, we work with, and we're going to work with local producers too. So I'm pretty excited about it. It's a really cool game. Every time we've play tested it, people seem to love it. And then we ask them about it afterwards. We do follow-up questions about specific critical thinking skill sets, and they all seem to be more receptive to it. So basically, that's the nutshell in the game, and it's the URL is just elbowfish.com.
Elbowfish.com. And that's out soon, or is it out already?
That is, well, we just got it kickstarted, and I have a meeting with them, I think, Monday about when it's going to come out. It's in production now, I think.
Oh, nice.
Or it will be within the next couple of days.
Any of your students looked at that? Have your students tested it?
No, my students didn't test it. Although we did open gaming tests, open game night, and some of my I put it on the board, and some of my students went to it, but not as part of a class. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'd like to see if I could. I've been thinking about integrating that in my class.
Okay.
So what about the app then? Wait, so that's the game, but the app is a totally separate item?
The app is so many people have said, well, I really want to try this, but I'm shy. Or I really want to try this, but I'm afraid someone's going to say something and I don't really know what to respond and I don't know.
You mean the epistemology? They wanted to try the epistemology, but they didn't know how to start it? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, they wanted to try a conversation where they help people shed a religious delusion. Garden of Eden is in Jackson County, Missouri. Jesus Christ rose from the tomb.
Yeah.
Something of that nature.
The app is helping them start that without having to have the book in hand, or
the app. So people would say, well, I want to start talking people out of faith, but I'm afraid they'll say something that I don't understand, or I'm afraid that and so no matter how many times that I thought about this for a long time, and then I thought, well, why not make an app? So I have a team of about 20 people now. We just added a couple more team members. We have a content side and then an application side. And I'm working with a friend of mine, Brian Walsh, on the application side. So myself and my team, we do all of the content. And basically it's kind of like a dungeon crawl. This is the idea. And the name is going to be something like Escaping the Cave or something like that. And so you help people. As you start in the cave, Plato's cave, you're going to help people escape the cave. That's also why it's not a debate. You're not debating anybody. The people you help, you rescue from delusion, then go behind you as you traverse the cave and enter the light. So it's basically it's an absolutely massive project. I can't even possibly tell you how many hours I put into this and how many. It's certainly the largest project I've ever attempted.
Wow! I'm looking forward to seeing that come out.
Mm-hmm.
In December.
Ooh,
well, in December, we're going to start beta testing it. The content is about 90% finished now. I mean, one of the documents is called a data dump. It's 500 of any conceivable thing anybody could say to you about faith or God. Wow. 500 statements that people can make.
Wow.
Goodness gracious.
That's huge right there.
Well, you heard
and then we have a curveball section of things that nobody, once in a blue moon, people would say to you. And so basically it gives you a correct answer, or an ideal response, 2 ideal responses, and 3 incorrect responses. So check this out. This is one of the things that's super cool about this. So you're going through this dialogue, like the one I'm looking at right now, I just popped it up, is Pascal's wager. Mm-hmm. And then the line is, it's safer to believe than not to believe. It's safer to believe than not to believe. So on the screen, users will see ideal response. They'll just see 3 answers, like A, B, C. But what there really are two ideal responses and 3 responses that are not ideal. So if they fail the quiz and they get bumped out again, it'll go to another ideal response and to another. Every time they take the quiz, it's a little bit different.
Interesting.
It's like a choose your own adventure story.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we also have dialogue trees, and we have a lot of people who have we call them notable atheists who have contributed to this. I also solicited about 35 essays from leading atheists in the world, about just 400-word essays, very brief essays that can fit on a screen. What are the best ways that you know to talk people out of faith and superstition and into reason?
Wow.
And they answer those, and it covers everything: cosmological arguments and various things. Ryan Cragen submitted one. David Rees submitted one. Stephen Law is going to submit one. Raphael Lataster has submitted 3. Richard Carrier submitted one, and you have Richard coming up there next week. So J.D. Brooker submitted one. So anyway, we have a lot of people who have collaborated on this.
Wow.
It's an absolutely massive project.
Yeah, I can't help but remark on that's probably one of the reasons I think, and you would probably agree with me, that atheists are winning because we're not using their burning bush to communicate stuff like that.
Yeah, I think
a little bit more high tech.
Yeah, I think a lot of the ways we've traditionally communicated with theists, they haven't really served the interest of the theist. Forget advancing our own interest of having a more rational, more secular society, but they haven't really advanced the epistemic situation of the person with whom we're speaking. And so that's one of the things I tried to do in my book, is to bring more civility to our discourse. I just was thinking about this the other day, and I mentioned this. I was on Stefan Molyneux's podcast, a fellow Canadian, and we talked about the schism in the atheist movement and feminism. And it's really interesting to me. I don't know how it is in Canada, but there's this thing in the United States where, like, it's just so contentious and so fractious. And it's like you can't really even have a conversation without someone without, like, why didn't you win? Or why didn't you, beat him? Or why didn't you say that? And I just think that those ways of interacting with people, they're just not productive at all. They just don't, they're not in anybody's interest.
It's a bit like short-term gain instead of long-term planning.
I don't even know what you'd gain short term. I mean, maybe you'd gain the feeling of, I don't know, having beaten someone or something, but I don't know why that would be advantageous.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you that I'm not sure that's always, well, I don't know how it is in the States, but in Canada, I wouldn't say it's even necessarily intentional. It's just that in some cases, the positions are so far apart that they don't even know where to meet in the middle, that it's hard to get a dialogue going just because people have such completely opposite theories or viewpoints on the world.
I think you're right. That's why there's a philosopher, Jürgen Habermas, who says that when you communicate with people, let's just try to understand what they're saying first. Try to really figure out, why does somebody believe this. So the key there isn't what they believe. That's obvious. It's obvious to me why. The conclusions that people come to are pretty obvious to me. Whether it's about gun control or abortion, talk to Jeff about that in Canada. It's not about what conclusions people have. It's about how they know what they know. Mm-hmm. And I would suggest that the first step in any conversation would be to just really sincerely try to figure out how it is that somebody came to this conclusion. And that's the thing I think we're lacking in our discourse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you're right. Too much of a confrontational model is there. I mean, religious people have the best of intentions anyway, right? They're not evil people. They're just misguided, I guess. You have to understand them.
and some of them have misconstrued reality. Others are delusional. But there's always a chance they're right, and we need to be open to that. But the way that we figure out if they're right or not, if they're correct, and we should subscribe to those beliefs, is to figure out how they know what they know. It's not to look at their conclusions. It's not to say Jesus Christ rose from a tomb. Well, the question is, well, how do you know that? What is your evidence for that? And that's what we need to be focusing on. And we have not been focusing on that to the degree in which we should. And that's, I think that's part of the reason that the dialogue, these conversations devolve into heated arguments. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because it's just people yelling conclusions at each other. And it's not it should never be about a conclusion. It doesn't make a difference what the conclusion is.
Well, I think you would agree with me that probably the best feeling in the world is to be right, to be correct, and adversely, the worst feeling in the world is to be wrong. So I think people all try to be right no matter what the cost.
I couldn't possibly disagree more. I think that the best feeling that I've had is when I had a belief that's true. Like when I cast off a belief that was false, and I now have one less false belief in my kind of the suite of beliefs that I have. And Socrates talks about that it's more important to be refuted than it is to refute. I mean, I understand that people get a feeling, it's kind of a sweet feeling to be right about something. I was teaching a science and pseudoscience class about 10 years ago or something, I don't even know how long ago, at Portland State. And we go through all these pseudoscientific claims, and one of the claims is, of course, Bigfoot. And a guy in my class was telling me he believed in Bigfoot. And when I asked him why, he said he wanted bragging rights. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, because if there is a Bigfoot, then I want to be like, yeah, I knew there was a Bigfoot. I knew that first, kind of like a pseudoscientific hipster, I guess, But I think, I mean, that was just so interesting to me that you can't get bragging rights from being lucky. Mm-hmm. I mean, could it be the case that the universe is so constructed so that Muhammad really did receive revelations in a desert? Yeah, sure, it could be. I mean, sure. There's nothing in the nature of reality that certainly prevents that. Some people would disagree with me, but I would hold that's the case, and that we need to be open to that being the possibility. But the real question is, how do you know that? And without adequate justification for how somebody knows something, then I'm simply not going to believe it. And they shouldn't believe it either. And that's that gets back to the conversation about the game, about Jux, that's the value we need to help people hold. It's more important. Look, the value of belief revision is more important than any other value you hold.
Very interesting. So,
fantastic. I love that line.
Your book, has it caused a lot of ripples in the religious world? I mean, was there any bite back? Like when Dawkins wrote his God Delusion, some people wrote the Dawkins Delusion. Was there any kind of fight back from the religious factions towards your book?
Yeah, few people wrote books about my books, and few people wrote... not
that we're going to plug them in, but...
Yeah, no, a few people wrote books, and of course, obviously, I got a lot of stuff on Facebook. Yeah, there was a bite back. Those things are trivial, though. The more concerning thing to me was what I see now is that people will tell me, for example, your book was read in my church, or I went to church. And they said, the pastor or the minister or priest, what have you, said, if somebody says this to you, say this. And the interesting thing to me about that wasn't particularly interesting, but the theists now they're not really using the word faith as much as they are trust or hope. That's the most disturbing consequence from my book to me.
Yeah, so instead of saying they have faith, they really mean they have hope.
No, they mean they have faith, but they're playing a linguistic switcheroo, and they're saying that they trust in the promises of Jesus.
Yes, we've noticed that.
That way they can avoid all of the pitfalls with the word faith. But it really is. It's ultimately the same. Mm-hmm. But it's more difficult. Those interventions are much more difficult when anyway. So I'm seeing a. I hope I don't mean to think that my work is overly grandiose or I've caused some major sea change in the Christian world. I certainly don't mean to imply that, but I do see that there is a switch underway, and that switch is from using the word faith to using the word trust. And I write about that a little bit in my book. I just didn't realize how prevalent that would be.
Interesting.
Can I ask a question that completely changes the subject here?
Sure,
I saw that you are going to be teaching a course in atheism at the university.
You follow me on Twitter.
It was on Facebook, actually.
Yes.
So I'm curious about that. How are you teaching atheism? Are you?
Do
I
you want me
don't.
to send you guys the syllabus after this, and you can post it for your listeners?
I would love
Sure.
that. Yes, please.
Let me type that in the comment line there. So in the let's see, send syllabus. I'll do it so I don't forget. So basically, it's a so courses at Portland State are taught in 10-week chunks, so they're not semesters, they're terms. And it's a very interesting mix of guest lecturers. Actually, we had a Christian guest lecturer. Phil Vischer, the guy who was responsible for Veggie Tales, is going to come.
Oh, great.
And
Wow.
yeah, so the class is. Have you seen that movie? What's that movie that the Christians put out with Kevin Sorbo?
That's God's Not Dead.
Yeah, ooh, very good. Yeah, yeah. So it couldn't. I haven't seen it, but it couldn't possibly be further from my conception of what that. So if you want to figure out what the class is like, just reverse that whole movie. Just like flip it around 180. So yeah, so I'll send you the syllabus. You can see there every week there are questions, discussion questions that people can look at. We look at. I have another guest lecturer, Stephen Brutus, who just wrote a book, Religion, Culture, and History, is on Amazon.
Hmm.
He's going to come in and do an hour or 2 hour lecture on the history of atheism. So it's a lot of lectures. Students are responsible, and they can take their children if they want to go to, and I think it's actually important for a lot of Portland State University students tend to be older. That's why I mentioned that. I think it's important for kids to see many religious services so they realize that, Dennett talks about this as well. But they one of the assignments is they have to go to 3 services that are different from their own. So if they're raised Baptist, then they have to go to, a mosque or a temple or a Jehovah's Witness or what have you.
Oh, cool.
And then, so that's assignment. And then it's really interesting, it's just a really interesting exploration of ideas.
Yeah, broadening the horizon.
That's really
Say that
cool.
again?
Broadening the horizon of what you know, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. That's the idea. And we take a look at Christian theologians. We take a look at William Lane Craig and Plantinga and Swinburne and Lennox and then we take a look at atheist thinkers. And, when I did this class before, it's pretty cool. So I can Skype in. So all these guys are kind of become close friends of mine. So I can Skype them in, and I have a little Skype session, and we get to hear from people like Russell Blackford from Australia.
Hmm.
We get to hear from people like John W. Loftus. I have a chapter coming out in his new book now. So it's pretty cool. So we can ask people a wide range of questions about their book. Guy P. Harrison has come in to speak to the class, come in, quote unquote, via Skype. So it's pretty cool. And, I really enjoy it. It's good. It's a big class, though, but it's good. We only have a few slots left, so I'm hoping that the people who want to take it get to take it.
Beautiful, beautiful. So what's next for Peter Boghossian, aside the class there?
The class and the app and the
And
game.
Yeah, and the game, and I know.
So I'm going to, I think December 31st, I'm going to transition beyond atheism. I'm not going to do that much atheist stuff anymore. And the reason for that is because I want to go back to the root of critical thinking. And I mentioned this a little bit before. I want to go back to talking about what I think the conversation should be about. I think we need to have a conversation about having conversations, about how to have conversations. But even more important than that, I think it's every time somebody, and there's a good video I'll actually put the link on this. I did a video, a talk at Intel about critical thinking. It's a 20-minute crash course. I think what's important is how do we help people value those things which will make them more rational, more reasonable, and more civil toward each other? Because clearly that's not happening now. It's not happening. It's not even happening within the atheist movement. And so how can we expect theists, for example, to model the behavior that we would like them to model if we're not even modeling it ourselves? So I want to get back to writing about and thinking about how to promote certain values that lead people to become better critical thinkers. That's very different, by the way, than promoting a critical thinking skill set. To me, it's not about, someone can make an inference or somebody can pick a fallacy out. You can look. You can be able to. You can pick all the fallacies out that you want in the world. That doesn't mean you're a good critical thinker. I mean, you could be in a situation in life where you just don't have. You know what to do, but you don't have the attitude. Like you have the skill set, but you're just not predisposed to make certain decisions. And people, if people lack that mechanism, then there's no way that they can help themselves. They kind of become epistemically trapped. They become trapped with their decisions because they can't think beyond them.
And doing all this within a frame of civility is what you're trying to do at the same time.
I think that's important. I think now things are so fractious and so contentious and so bitter. And you mentioned politics before. Not only in politics, it's almost like we. It's really sad. I was talking to my dad and my mentor about this. People are so uncivil towards each other. You know, I mean, think about this. So I mentioned Phil Vischer. I had a conversation with him for an hour online, and I can't even possibly tell you how many people said things to me like, oh, you should have, why didn't you crush them? Are we having a bad day? No, I'm having a conversation with them. Why does everything have to be about like crushing somebody? And what I think was super valuable about that is because it modeled those behaviors of really, two guys really listening to each other, what they had to say. And the consequence of that is we kind of became friends. And he's coming out to speak to my class. And I think that's a good experience. Students, look, students need to make up their own minds about things. I'm not some bully. I'm not some dogmatist who wants them to hold certain. But look, if they decide that the universe is constructed in such a way that Thor is up there with a hammer, that's great.
You mean he's not?
I want to know how they know that, so then I can know it too. But I think that's really important, that we become more civil and more rational in our discourse. And none of us want this country to turn into Iraq or Syria.
Well, when you do have that all laid out, send us a copy so we can send it to Parliament. And we might send a copy to Congress down in the States as well, because they certainly could need more civility and more listening to the other faction.
I think we all need that. That's actually something that's close to my heart. So I'm really happy to hear that you're going to be doing that, because I agree with you 100%.
So I guess this is the time I say the book is A Manual for Creating Atheists. Where can people find this book, Peter?
It's on Amazon. I haven't even looked at Canada on Amazon. I don't know how long, but it's on Amazon. And if you're it's on Amazon in the UK and the US, Canada, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where you can go.
Yeah, it's a fantastic little book. It's actually very inexpensive. And actually, when you came up here, I think I bought like 5 copies and I distributed them. So
thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, I had a great time up there. You guys are. It's like family. When you go some places, there's just like a big family.
Well, you're always welcome back, of course.
Oh, thank you. How's Nancy doing?
Oh, she's great. Just as full of energy as ever.
We were having a drink last night with your friend Richard Carrier and Nancy and Jeff, and we were all enjoying that, and we were saying good things about you for sure.
Oh, well, that's good. How is Richard?
Ball of energy, the fella. Ball of energy. We'll be off interviewing him.
That man is a very impressive drinker, I must say.
Well, I made sure to give him a bottle of Canadian Crown Royal with maple flavor to it. So.
Oh, that was very cool. That was very cool. Very, very cool.
And we will keep our eyes open for your game and your app. And
absolutely. And best of luck to all that, Peter. And before you go, I just want to ask one shameless plug. Would you be so kind in your wonderful voice, because I think you got a great voice, to say something like, "Hey, I'm Peter Boghossian, and I took a left at the valley with Kevin and Karen"?
Sure.
Awesome.
Ready?
Go for it.
I'm Peter Boghossian, and I took a left at the valley with Kevin and Karen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Peter.
That was pleasure.
Peter Boghossian, people.
Thank you so much for joining us, Peter.
And have a great time, and we'll be talking to you soon, sir.
All right. Thanks, my friends.
Okay, bye now.